Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for my client Carter's vlog. And we started this week off with max effort bench press with his buffalo bar. Actually, I think that's the Duffalo bar. He got 280. He kind of called it there because fairly challenging. Kept it as a training max, and we didn't want to risk a miss after we had, I believe, a miss a week or two ago on his bench press day. And right now, because he's able to finally start eating again, we're just going to focus on, again, a lot of quality hypertrophy work outside of his max and speed work. We really do need to bring up his posterior chain massively. It's a really, really big deal for him. It's by far his weakest link in his body, and it's due to a lot of some previous overuse, inflammation problems he runs into. So I'm having him do flat dumbbell presses and then incline dumbbell presses on max effort bench day. This covers a lot of angles, gives us a lot of range of motion here. Again, we're changing movement patterns up a little bit to help with overuse, but really he needs a lot more pectoral. For Carter, that's really what's limiting his bench at this point. He's got good delts. He's got massive triceps. With his tricep size, there's no reason he's only benching, 300-ish. Now, we're down to 300-ish after the cut. I believe his best ever when he was 20 pounds heavier was in, I believe, 325. Right? And I think that's where we had him, if I recall. So after that, we do lat pull downs at the moment. We're having to work with some different angles, and I gave him some advice, and he changes it up later this week. He still has a lot of forearm inflammation, like his radial brachialis is still very, very inflamed. He's run into problems with pull-ups from it. So he had said these hurt too. So for the next workout, I had him just do a false grip, like thumbs over with an overhand grip on the lat pull downs, and it seems to have resolved the issue for him. But again, I wish he could do pull-ups at the moment, but they're just too much of a problem for his forearm, although I might advise him to try the same thing with a false grip. Okay, after that, we do dumbbell lateral raises. Again, we are making sure we're working his delts and everything. We do need to bring the shoulders up slightly. We need to bring everything up, even though right now pecs are a big priority in his upper body. Whereas in lower body, it's posterior chain that's limiting us. So after that, we do our band press downs, which is really all we ever do for his triceps anymore, since they're pretty much a dominant body part in his upper body. His triceps are strong. We just do this for the restoration, for the elbow health, and to give them a little bit of stimulus. All right. We went with a cambered bar squat this week for max effort lower. So you guys see he's got an axle bar with those cambered attachments on it, which actually works decently well. I've had people say, hey, do those attachments work? And we found for him using them, he really kind of needs to use the axle bar. All right. Otherwise, because of the way this thing swings, if you have an aggressive knurl on the bar, it can chew your back up a little bit. All right, then of course we do good mornings, and as we can see, this is really where we see his weakness is coming out with the whole posterior chain, low back. Because if you look, he can belt squat a lot more, right? He can actually squat compared to his overall size and his deadlifts and everything. His squat is actually higher. So really what we have here is an enormous amount of posterior chain weakness, and a lot of it comes from a prolonged period of time of not being able to train it at all, which we've been working on since he's came on, and we're just slowly bringing it up. I mean, we just now got him back to a 405 deadlift, which I think was a match to his lifetime PR, and so we need to bring that up. We need to get him deadlifting 500. We need to be squatting 405. But again, we've got to deal with a lot of hip inflammation. We deal with a lot of low back inflammation, and it's mostly due to the fact that he has serious overuse problems from the past there, from years ago, that have caught up with him. And then the nature of his job doesn't help. Doesn't help at all with certain things he has to do specifically for work. So after the good mornings, we do belt squats. And we do glute ham raises and reverse hyperextensions. Kind of hard to go wrong with this combination. Again, particularly for someone who's got some low back issues, someone who's got a really weak posterior chain, this all helps because really the only thing we're loading the lower back with axially is the good mornings, and he's not that strong on them yet. So it's not really that much, and then everything else is completely removing any stress from it. It's all traction based or weight around the hips. So again, works very well because these movements combined are going to give us complete lower body development. But we're doing so in a way that is going to be healthy for his low back inflammation. But we really, really have to get the work capacity up on this. Like, so when we compare, you look at his good mornings, you look at his reverse hypers, and then you guys see kind of the weights some of my other clients use. I mean, he's down at the point of some of my girls are outlifting this, and it's not an insult. This shows how much he's regressed there. Yet in spite of that, we've still managed, to deadlift 405. Again, because he's got enough quad, he's got enough back, everything else to pull that off. But again, we really need to get that to 500 pounds, and we need to do it pain-free, and that's only going to happen by building these areas up and building the work capacity. All right, speed bench this week. We went with speed bench against bands with a straight bar. Of course, 3 sets wide, 3 sets medium, 3 sets close. And of course, he's working with the pause method now, like what I do on it. And, it depends on the coaches. Some coaches like the pausing. Some want you to try to get a stretch reflex. I vary it based upon my lifters and what they really seem to need. All right, afterwards, we do some incline dumbbell presses. People always ask me, I've had some people say, why don't you do these more? Because they're really a pain in the butt with my adjustable dumbbells. But that being said, could I stand to do some eventually? Probably. Probably work some in eventually again. All right, just for changing up the movement pattern. Because there comes a point with a lot of this stuff where it's not that barbells versus dumbbells always have advantages. We could argue about those advantages a lot. It's a matter of rotating movements, sometimes to avoid overuse while still getting the same basic movement in. All right, notice the thumbs over. I think this is what we did for the lat pull downs this time is, well, I don't see the thumbs over on this. That's what I told him to do. But he had said when he did them thumbs over, they were pain-free. So we're happy with that. Then for shoulders, we did upright rows today, which it turns out are not really particularly great for his forearm. Also, again, the radial brachialis didn't like it at all, didn't care for it. So we may have to pull these back out and just replace them with dumbbell work or cable work, which I'm perfectly fine with. Everything doesn't need to be a big barbell movement. If anything, a lot of our hypertrophy work are, accessory exercises. We should oftentimes be looking at, what exercise is going to force us to use a lighter weight to get the same amount of stimulus, but then we still want to progress on those. Then, of course, we do band press downs again for the triceps and the tendons and his elbow health. All right, for dynamic lower, he actually said this was really aggravating, I believe, his hip. So we tried his buffalo bar for box squats against bands, but the instability on it, particularly with the bands and everything at the top, was really kind of, I believe, inflaming his hip a little bit. So we may need to pull this bar back out and go back to an SSB or a straight bar or something for these. On the other hand, he's now finding that this band setup, he doesn't run into these problems. So we can conventional pull against bands for speed, and we do just fine. It's pain-free, everything's comfortable. And then, of course, we finish up with our, good mornings, reverse hypers, glute ham raises, right? Because, again, this is the stuff that he needs. We've really got to bring up that posterior chain. That is the biggest limiting factor he has. But we have to work around all that inflammation and injury history there, which is the tricky part. So, again, we have to limit total load, and sometimes we'll have to take volumes down lower just to accommodate that. And he admitted when I first had him doing some of this stuff, he's like, this is less volume than I was doing. I'm like, well, that's why you were getting overuse. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.